Everybody, welcome to our masterclass on the 3 steps to rehabilitate from recurring pains and injuries by moving in full ranges of stable motion while maximizing fitness and athleticism, if appropriate for you. My name is Madison Dubroff. I'm going to get into who the heck I am in just a second, but I wanted to jump on this before I start sharing our slides. Just to go over a couple of unique things that we're going to be doing in this masterclass, because this is not your typical webinar presentation for a variety of reasons. So first thing is the chat box that you see underneath this thing. I have this presentation set up a little bit uniquely. So I'm recording this live, but whether you're watching this live or you're watching a replay, which most of you guys are going to be watching a replay of this, that chat box is live where anything that you write in there, any comments, any questions that you have on the topic that's specific to you, any feedback that you have on it, you send that. It goes directly to my personal inbox. So it's going to go to my email. It actually also goes to my assistant's email as well, because she monitors me to make sure I don't miss any emails. But my point is, any questions that you have on this presentation, you ask, and I will personally get back to you. So that is live, and please use that resource. The next thing that to just kind of give you some specifics about it is, this is going to be about an hour-long presentation. I've done this masterclass dozens and dozens and dozens of times over the years. We've been running this for 3 years now, and we've tweaked it and fine-tuned it based off of people's feedback. We've had literally thousands of people go watch this and give us feedback on this. So this is perfected for you guys right now. And how this is going to be is, the first 15 minutes or so are going to be the overview and kind of the bullet points of what we're going to be covering, and also introducing myself and what we do and all that kind of stuff. And then the next back end is going to be some meat and potatoes. So most webinars, most masterclass presentations, they're like really high level. Like, you watch and you're like, okay, that was cool. I got some general concepts, but I don't know what the heck to do with it. I don't know how to use it. I'm going to get more specific. I'm going to actually give you guys some practical things that you can take with and run with on this, and go through high level concepts as well. So we're going to get a little bit more specific on it. The other thing that makes this thing unique is, it's not a sales webinar. This is not like intended to sell you on anything. I promise throughout this entire thing, I am not going to open up a shopping cart. I'm not going to try to sell you a single thing. And in fact, we do have like an offer for you. It's already live right now. And something that again is unique is, I'm going to tell you what the offer is from the very beginning of this. And it's completely free, but it's here as a resource for you, because if you don't have the time to watch this entire masterclass presentation, and let's say you get through the first beginning portion of it and you're like, you know what, this all makes sense. I think that like this is the holistic approach that I've been looking for. I need some help on this kind of stuff, and I want it specific to me. I want a professional to take a look at me. Well, what we're offering is 2 free calls with myself and my team. And those 2 free calls, like I said, they're not sales calls, they're service calls. And they're set up for, call number 1 is a relatively quick call. That's actually done over the phone. It's like 20 or 30 minutes. We basically run through what your background is. We want to know, obviously, what your body's been through, what you've been dealing with, all that kind of stuff. Then we want to get into like your activities, your goals, what you want to do, and basically just ask any informative questions that we can have to find out good general information on your health and your goals and all that good stuff. Then the next call is much more extensive, and that one's actually done over video. And you connect with myself, and we go through full body assessments and how your body is moving in a variety of different ways. Also get some nitty-gritty range of motion tests going on, so we can test to see any asymmetries and take a look at each joint in the body. And in that call, we determine not only how your body is moving, but why it's doing what it's doing. That's even more important. And then based off that, on that call, we go through a number of full body mobility techniques and exercise techniques that you can take with and run with on your own, without like not going into our program, just you on your own, to get this thing moving back to full ranges of stable motion. So that's something that we're really passionate about. We offer that to everybody. And I'm going to get into more detail on what that call entails and why we do what we do and all that kind of stuff. So that, as the presentation goes on, but just in case, like I said, if you guys are watching this and you're like, this all makes a lot of sense, I want a professional to help me. I want to get specific to what I'm dealing with. Because even though I'm going to give you guys some good specific insights and practical things to do, it's not going to be individual to your hip or your ankle or your back or your shoulder or your neck or whatever it is that you're dealing with, or a combination of those things. So like, obviously I'm going to be giving you guys kind of general things that you can kind of take with and explore yourself on this presentation. But if you're like, you know what, I want somebody to just take a look at me and it's free, that's awesome, then feel free to book those calls with us. And then we're going to go over basically what we're covering in this presentation here, but just individual to you. So that resource is already live for you. Feel free to click on that. You'll be able to pick a time that works best for you. And then I think that is basically without it, guys. Without further ado, I'm about to get started. If you want to have a pen and paper handy or whatever you like to take notes on, feel free. But let me share my screen and we'll pull up this presentation. Perfect. All right. So like I said, welcome to the 3 steps to move in full range of stable motion to prevent recurring pains and injuries while maximizing fitness and health. I tried to condense down that title over the years, but I just can't. That basically summarizes everything that we're going to do. And you can do it in just 15 minutes a day. And I am that person, Madison Dubroff down here. Cool. So who is this presentation for? Well, this presentation is for any competitive athlete or just generally active individual. You don't have to be an athlete. You could just be somebody who likes to go outside and hike and play with the kids or play with the grandkids or whatever, but all the above. And it's for somebody who wants to fully recover from and prevent future injuries and chronic pains. Also wants to be able to gain complete control of their own fitness and health as opposed to having to rely on somebody else all the time. And is somebody who wants to excel and enjoy the activities we love with the people we love for life. We want to do this for decades and decades to come. And it's somebody who is wanting functional health. We want something that is helping us get functional health in all the sense of that word. Beautiful. Now, who is this guy? Who am I? Madison Dubroff. Well, I am for over the last 10 years, actually over a dozen years now, I have been a corrective exercise specialist as well as a functional movement coach and a number of other things as well, like other credentials under my name as well. And over this last decade plus, I've worked with over 2,000 clients. I'm also the founder of a program called Health by Ratio. And if you guys don't know what the heck a corrective exercise specialist is or a functional movement coach, it's very niche. So most people don't know what that is. I'm kind of like the bridge between a strength and conditioning coach and physical therapy. So I'm working with people on their foundational patterns and reteaching them through mobility and exercise to get into full range of stable motion. But in my program, I also have a number of licensed physical therapists who work for me, as well as functional health coaches, because we take a look at the nutrition side and mental emotional side as well. But have licensed physical therapists work with me. And the team of us have collaborated and we've created this program that we call Health by Ratio. And we'll get into a little bit of what I do, and I should say, like, throughout this presentation, guys, I'm going to have testimonials on here. I am going to talk a bit about our program. It's not to try to sell you on our program. It's really just because that's my experience, and this is where we've gotten our results. And I'm proud of what we've done. And that doesn't mean that you guys need to do this through us. These concepts can be applied with anybody by themselves, all that good stuff. But that's my personal background. And my team and I have cultivated this holistic program that we're going to talk about in this presentation, and how you can implement these steps yourself. I'm also a former collegiate athlete and current weekend warrior. I like playing my own sports and my own activities and exercise and all that good stuff. And I've had a ton of injuries in the past. I'll have a slide that kind of lists those guys out shortly, but now no more. Now, what people want out of this presentation, what they're actually trying to get out of this masterclass, is health and longevity. They want to feel mobile and healthy and stable throughout their daily activities, and they want to play perhaps a sport or hike or play with the kids, grandkids for decades to come. We kind of already talked about that. Also, people that are watching this are typically wanting to improve on their fitness and athleticism. They want to feel good exercising. They want to know how to do it. They want to be a better runner, feel like they have a better running gait, or maybe hiking gait, walking gait, that kind of thing. They want to play a sport at a higher level. They want to be more explosive, and they don't feel like their body's stable or balanced, and they're losing force and potential production that they can because of these imbalances. And often, every time we start to get into a rhythm, and we've now started for several weeks or a couple of months, we're starting to feel like we're getting into our jam, we get hurt or we get injured, and it takes all the wind out of our sails. So we want to stop those recurring injuries, and we want to just be able to build on our fitness and health on a regular basis. The other thing that people want is they want self-control over their health. So we want to have, like most of the people that we work with and most of the people that have watched this presentation over the years have done countless treatments and therapies. And at this point have spent way too much money on recurring things that are to still feel like they are out of balance and in pain. Like I've invested thousands of dollars on my body, and this thing is still not feeling the way that it should, and I'm over it. And on the mental emotional side, often we kind of get these dueling personalities, and we want the hero to win because we have the hero and the victim. We have one side of us is like, I know I can get healthy. I know I can get better. I know I can get stronger. I know I can get in better shape. I know I can heal from this injury, whatever it is. And then we got the victim that's like, well, maybe I'm too old. Well, maybe this is too much damage. Maybe I just need to hang this up. Maybe I need to give that thing up, whatever it is. And we get like kind of the victim and the hero going back and forth in our head. Well, we want the hero to win. So you guys have come to the right place. Now, my question for you is, what do you want? And I think that this is a good thing for you to ask yourself. Like, this is a quick little visualization. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but like you might want to write this down and do this more extensively after this presentation. But 6 months from now, like visualize you and I, we're just sitting on a beach and we're chatting. We're hanging out in Hawaii, beautiful like sunset going on. We got the nice crystal clear water, and we're hanging out. And I'm asking you, and you're describing to me, how does your body feel each day? What's it like right now? And what's your fitness like? What kind of things are you doing? What activities are you enjoying? And how often, how frequently are you doing them? And then how is this impacting the other areas of your life? Like how is your quality of life changed with these results? So visualize that, feel into it. I think that's a really good practice, and then you have a really good understanding of what your goals are. Now I'm here to say, whatever those goals are, whether it has to do with sports or just having a generally active and healthy lifestyle for the rest of your life, you can achieve them. You can get that, and you can do it with control over your health. And that's what we're going to get rolling into. So my big promise in this presentation is we're going to teach you how to take control of your health by understanding why recurring pains and injuries occur, and potentially specifically for your body. And then realigning and reconditioning the body back to full ranges of stable motion is going to be the thing that we're going to do to stop those recurring pains and injuries. And that's going to allow us to feel balanced, fit, and athletically sound. So that's what we're going to be covering now. That first part is, why do these recurring pains and injuries happen? Well, the reason why 90% aren't successful is, and these are quotes from other famous biomechanists, doctors, physical therapists, all the above, is first and foremost, we rely on others to fix us. And a quote from Pete Egoscue, who's the founder of Egoscue method, says, our body is a self-service machine. We move it. A physical therapist doesn't move our body throughout the day. A chiropractor doesn't. A doctor, it's a self-service thing. The other reason is we only treat the pain and injured areas. I got a bad knee, I'm putting all my time and energy on that knee. I got a bad back, I'm putting all my time and energy into that back. But to find out what is impacting the injured and painful site, we need to look above and below. That's a quote from Kelly Stratt, a really famous physical therapist who has been like a mentor. I love Kelly Stratt. He has a ton of great content. Then we take medications and injections to mask the pain, to numb it, and we don't get the signal to our body anymore. Well, that's like putting a towel over the check engine light and expecting the car to be fine. And that's another quote from physical therapist Gray Cook, who founded the functional movement system and SFMA and all kinds of great stuff. Then another thing is we rarely move in full ranges of motion. So we often are locked in certain positions for hours a day, and those positions tighten us up. And then when we do move, we often move through limited ranges of motion. We move in like we're walking, where we're not really opening up the hips completely. We're not really moving our arms in big position. Like, how often do we actually extend our arms overhead and work through things? How often do we consciously look over the shoulder or look through the shoulder in another way? And then how I got Stella over my shoulder right now, the dog walking in the background, and she keeps wanting to go outside. Not now, pup. You're hanging out with us. see, you can see this. Stella's in all of my videos, whether we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, working with clients. She's a star in and of herself. Anyway, in terms of the ranges of motion, how often are we actually extending our legs completely behind us, opening up into lateral positions? We don't often put our bodies into full ranges of motion. We don't move in and out of those full ranges of motion. So because of that, movement is the key to our body's health. And when we don't, our body gets stiff and locked up. That quote's from Katie Bowman, who's a famous biomechanist, which is kind of an oxymoron. I don't know too many people that are famous biomechanists, but Katie's done it. She has some great books out there. And so my question for you is, how do these apply to you? And are you always relying on somebody else to fix your problems? Are you constantly focusing on just the area of concern, or are you working on the whole body? Are you taking potentially medications, injections, and that kind of stuff to just mask the pain? And are you truly going in and out of full ranges of motion for your entire body? So the 3 little known secrets to gain control of your health and fitness is: secret number 1, your body tells you everything. If you understand what it's saying to you, you can achieve all of your health and fitness goals. A quick testimonial to this, and again, this is from somebody who's gone through our program, Health by Ratio, is Orly, who is in California. She's an ultra marathon runner. This is a post of hers that she had after running 50 miles around the Bay Area. And before she started working with us, she was dealing with constant hip pain around her IT band, the greater trochanter area. And it was impacting her training for years, and she wasn't able to up her mileage to it. But then when she learned and understood why her body was moving the way that it was, especially around her running gait, but also around her daily habits as well, and she was able to correct it, all of a sudden that hip pain went away and she was able to up her mileage like crazy and had some phenomenal results really fast. Within actually just a month, she was able to start cranking out 20+ mile runs very, very quickly and feeling amazing afterwards. She did incredible work. Now, the second secret of this, and we're going to be covering these guys in much more detail. This is just the overview. The second secret is you can do the manual work yourself, the mobility work. You don't need to spend an arm and a leg on massages or chiropractic treatments or physical therapy treatment, copays, and all that kind of stuff. You can do this work yourself from home, and you can chunk it down into manageable bite-size time frames if you want, or you can do it a couple of times a week for 40 minutes to an hour. But if you break it up a little bit every day, you can crank it out in 15 minutes a day. And actually, here's an example. Noelle, who is in Rhode Island, she's a personal trainer, and she was dealing with knee issues, meniscus tear, plantar fasciitis, so her foot, and hip pain. So she got a number of things going on with her. And this was her quote was one of my favorite parts about the Health by Ratio program, is that you're able to chunk things down into manageable pieces. She's able to crank out, at this point, she can bust out 5 to 10 minutes a day because she's already done the work. Her body's feeling really good. Every morning she can wake up and in 5 to 10 minutes, she can get through her mobility techniques and exercise and get her body set up to perform the way that she wants throughout her work and her activities. And then she has a busy household with her kids and husband and all that kind of stuff. And she's able to do this in bite-sized chunks and keep this body functionally healthy. And then the third secret that we're going to be talking about today is it's all about retraining your body how to functionally move again. We got to reteach this body how to move correctly, because if it's been compensating for a number of years due to recurring pains and injuries, or if it's learned to move incorrectly, maybe due to tightnesses over the years, or maybe we just were never taught how to do something properly, or whatever it is, we need to recondition the central nervous system, this thing that dictates how we move. We got to teach it how to move our body correctly once we have these ranges of motion that we need. So that's our three secrets. And an example for that third example or testimonial is Peter, who's also in California, and he's somebody who is loves playing tennis, guitar, and he's a builder. So he's using his arms like crazy. And over the years, he was impacted by elbow tendonitis, shoulder impingement, and chronic neck tension and neck sorenesses. But then he was able to retrain how his glutes and core fired and supported him. Yes, I know we're talking about the neck and the shoulders and the elbow, but it actually was stemming from instabilities coming from his glutes and his core, and it wasn't allowing his thoracic spine, shoulder girdle, and neck to stabilize properly. So when we were able to retrain those guys how to stabilize them, all of a sudden this up top area was able to free up a little bit, able to stabilize the right way. So that's the beauty of retraining that central nervous system. All right, guys, that is our overview. Now, at this point, we're about to get into the meat and potatoes of all this, but you might be thinking, I can't do this. This sounds awesome, but I've had just too many injuries, or I've always had blah, blah, blah problem. This is like I've always had this bad knee. I've always had this bad back. I've never been flexible. I've never been able to have that range of motion. I might hurt myself more, so I don't know if this is for me. Well, all that kind of stuff. I understand. I truly get those questions. I get that mindset. I get that quote unquote like fear, hesitation, and I can relate personally. I'm personally not special. Like I felt the same way, and this list of stuff happened over the course of 8 years, in some change. I played. I not only played competitive football, but I also did mixed martial arts, and I even before that I was enjoyed growing up skateboarding. All those activities just beat the crap out of your body. And so over the years, I experienced tears to my MCL in one knee and my ACL and meniscus in the other. I had multiple, we're talking like a half dozen plus severe, like grade 2, grade 3 ankle sprains, tears, and dealt with plantar fasciitis in the bottom of my foot. I had several hamstring pulls chronically, and as well as chronic lower back and sciatic nerve pain for 2.5, 3 years, something like that, or like not a fun time in my life. Also had a pectoral tear and shoulder injuries that pertain to that after the fact, and I had a major neck injury that shredded and pinched severely a bunch of nerves in my neck, and I was having radiating nerve pain and quote unquote stingers where you'd have zings up and down my neck and shoulders for years. And on top of that, also had a handful of concussions from those variety of sports that I played. So if I ramble a little bit, we're going to blame it on the concussions. So I had all these things. I was dealing with pain and recurring injuries and tweaks to all these areas of my body for years and years and years. And then I learned those 3 secrets. And my personal route, and then now I'm gonna, and this will be the last bit about me, is after I finished playing competitive sports, I hung up my cleats. The first thing that I did was I became a strength and conditioning coach, because that was my background. But I was really, really passionate about this whole concept of functional movement and corrective exercise strategies, because it was something that I had never learned about when I was playing sports, and it really resonated with me. And that was thanks to some really phenomenal teachers and mentors that I was able to get in connection with almost immediately getting into the industry. And that led me very early on into getting hired as an area manager to an incredibly progressive health and wellness company. And they paid me for a number of years to basically study under the leaders in functional movement, corrective exercise, and physical therapy. I got to be in private rooms with some of the who's who in the leaders of these fields and get private workshops and credentials and ask questions and learn how to correct my own body so that I didn't deal with any more recurring injuries and pains. It took a little while for me. I was a pretty extreme circumstance at that point, but I was able to correct and heal my entire body from head to toe. And then from there, I implemented this with over 2,000 clients and with hundreds. I've taught this to literally hundreds of coaches and physical therapists. Like we have a wide spectrum of professionals that we work with on our team. And so now with Health by Ratio, our online program, we're seeing 95% success rates with our clients. It's pretty freaking phenomenal. And the reason why I would say is because one, we're really picky with the people that we bring on. We want to make sure that they're people that are a good fit for us and that they get an opportunity to try us out risk-free and make sure we're a good fit for them. And also, I think that we have a really unique holistic approach that helps people get to where they want to go. So that's enough bragging on our program. And now I want to get into the actual meat and potatoes of this, guys, so that you have some great information. And so I've already seen some calls get booked up. I hope that you guys are taking advantage of that resource. I'd love for us to connect with my team and I and you, and be able to help you specifically. But this is some of the content that I want to get into. So what I've learned over the last decade, the number one key to functional health and fitness isn't just moving and exercising often. That's not the key. It's not just get up, move, and exercise. It's first we got to get balanced, mobile, and stable. Then we got to learn how to move correctly. Then we move often. That's the big thing. So the first step in this is we got to analyze our body. We got to figure out how we're moving and why we're moving the way we are. And our body tells us everything we need, and we don't necessarily need doctors for this. Now, my team and I are here as a resource, but you can do this yourselves. So, what impacts our health? Well, there's a variety of things. We're going to be covering movement and exercise the most in this presentation, but nutrition plays a huge role. That's something that we're huge on in our program, because if we're not giving our body the right nutrients to repair and heal, then that's not doing us any justice. And the nutrition side of this also impacts us. If we're eating things that are not so good for us, it's going to inflame us. We're going to create systemic inflammation. Then that is going to resonate into our weak links in the chain. So we got a bad back and our whole body's inflamed up. Guess what? That bad back's going to hurt the most. Also, sleep and rest. Like, we need the time to recover. Our tissues need to repair. So what's our quality of sleep like? Our stress levels, just like we talked about with when we're eating foods that maybe aren't so good or drinking some things that aren't so good for us and that's inflaming us. Well, chronic stress levels inflame us as well with stress hormones that will crank up our systemic inflammation, and that impacts our weak links in the chain, as well as our environment, like where we live, the air we're breathing, the light we're exposed to, all that kind of stuff. And we talk about all these things in our program, but for the purpose of our topics for today, we're talking about movement and exercise. And how does the body communicate? Well, for physical health and fitness on the movement side, it communicates to us in range of motion. Are we tight or are we mobile? And that's relative to each spot, right? Like, we might feel like we're really mobile in certain directions, but we're really tight in the other directions. The next one is, are we balanced? Do we have good symmetries from the left to right hand side? Or are we out of balance? Or is one side tighter than the other? Is one side looser than the other? Is one side stronger than the other? Also, obviously, soreness levels. Are they normal? Is it like I got a good workout and I got some good soreness for the next couple of days? Okay, that's good soreness. Or is it excessive? Is it chronic? And that's another communication that we might have some issues. And then obviously joint and tissue health. Like, are our joints feeling mobile, stable, healthy, or are we getting recurring pains or injuries to them? Is our soft tissue and nervous systems, are those guys in great positions, or are they getting tweaked? Are they getting hurt? Are they getting injured? All of the above. Now, your body's movement and postural patterns explain why microtraumas, excessive soreness, pains, and injuries occur and linger. I have this uh, photo right here of Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is, and actually this is an old photo because now he's not playing for Golden State, but Kevin Durant is a phenomenal basketball player. He's one of the best in the league right now. But he's also somebody that has dealt with a ton of injuries over his career. As a matter of fact, I can't think of too many seasons that he hasn't had an injury that's taken him out for at least a chunk, if not like the whole remainder of the season. Everything from his ankles, his Achilles, his knees. I think I know he's had hips. I think back. I'm not sure. Also, shoulders have been an issue for him. So, and these have been some significant, like Achilles tears, meniscus, maybe it was MCL actually, and some like pretty significant injuries. Well, look, if we're just looking, this is how he shoots a free throw. If we're looking at this right now, you can't. It's cut off at the bottom, but you can see this foot over here. He's got his feet bowed in. Also, his knees buckle in. They're doing what's called knee valgus. This is a really dangerous thing that a lot of athletes do when they're squatting, jumping, running. Their knees track inside of their big toes. Puts a ton of tension on the knees. It also torques the ankle in the process. He's also rolling forward at his shoulders. And because of the nature of the sport, he's doing single-sided work a lot. He's shooting with one arm over and over. Now, he does obviously use both hands, but he's primarily loading with his right arm over and over and over again. Well, these have created imbalances in his body. And so he gets chronically tweaked and pulled on in weird directions when he's running, when he's shooting a free throw, when he's actually jumping up to block a shot. And so he's had a number of injuries. And so our body's movement and postural patterns explain why these micro traumas and or all the way up to severe injuries occur. When we fail to notice the ways each joint moves together, we miss the root causes for why our joints and tissues get injured and or fail to repair. So if we don't know how our body is moving as one big unit, and we miss how these things are impacting us, we don't find the root cause for why that knee hurts. Instead, we're just focusing on the knee. And if we neglect these things, our bodies start to break down in random, quote unquote, random areas due to compensations. And so like we start off maybe like a year or two ago, we were dealing with a neck issue, and then that trickled down into a back issue, and then that trickled down into a knee issue. And you're like, man, I have all these random things showing up on my body. I don't know. Well, it's not random. Your body is an interconnected web. So there's almost never randomness happening in it. Everything is connected to everything. We just have to understand what the body is doing and why that even matters. How is that impacted? What's not working correctly, or what's too tight, or what's too weak to help support us from head to toe. A testimonial on this, Anna Cadena, she's one of our more extreme cases, I would say, that we've worked with over the years, but she did and has done some miraculous things. So when she wrote this testimonial, Anna, it was 52. She had a prior C5 to C7 fusion and spondylolisthesis in her cervical and lumbar spine. So she was dealing with a lot of stuff that was giving her radiating nerve pain. She couldn't sleep well. She couldn't exercise. This photo of her is pretty amazing considering what she had been through. I couldn't believe that she was able to actually do this, but you can read, I'm not going to read through this entire thing, but basically like she worked with us for a number of months, but within just a couple of months, she was able to make massive improvements to her quality of life around her daily activities, whether it was like what she was doing in the kitchen, to how she was like walking and standing at her desk or sitting. And then probably the most important thing for her was her being able to sleep and get good quality rest. And we did this through understanding how her feet were in position when she was standing and walking, and then how that was impacting her pelvis, and how her glutes and core were stabilizing her body. And then that trickled into how her spine was stabilized from the lumbar to the thoracic to the cervical. And then we were able to do corrective exercise to teach her body how to actually hold itself in the right way. And that's why she was able to get the results that she did. So the major movement patterns that we want to assess are first, really our squat. We do it a lot. We sit down, we stand up. If we're jumping, we're doing that when we take off and land, or if we're lifting something up. We do a lot of squatting throughout the day. Also lunging, or at least getting into a staggered stance. Like we do that in theory 10,000 times a day when we walk, or if we kneel down to grab something, or if we're running, or if we're kind of like sprinting and we stop and then change direction, that's us going into a lunge. Like, so whether it's just daily stuff or whether it's athletic things, we do a lot of lunging. We do a lot of split stance work whenever we're walking around, hiking around, all that good stuff. Hip hinge, like straight leg deadlift, like where you're bending, folding forward at the torso. That is what we do first thing in the morning when we wash our face in the sink. It's what we do when we bend over to pick up something off the ground or unload the dishwasher. It's also, if we're like kind of going into a broad jump or a partial jump, we get into hip hinges in certain positions for those. And then obviously a major movement pattern is walking and or running gait analysis. We got to make sure that we're actually walking and running the right way when we're doing these movements. So if we analyze these things, we can see how the body is moving and determine why it's moving by getting nitty gritty on what we're looking for, as well as then following up with some range of motion tests to see where there might be limitations and or weaknesses in the body. Now, this is the joint by joint theory that we're talking about here. And this is an image of Robert Griffin III, RG3. I believe he is still in the league. He is a backup quarterback, if anything, but RG3 coming out of college was, I think he still might have the record. He had the fastest 40-yard dash sprint from for any quarterback in history. He was a super athlete, and I believe he was rookie of the year his first year. He played for the Washington Redskins at the time, and he had all this potential, but there's a lot of things going on in his body, and he was plagued with some massive injuries for basically like 4 straight seasons, and he injured himself out of starting positions, and now I think he's just a backup that he barely plays. Like his body has betrayed him, and we can see here that he has issues with while he's sprinting. This is obviously a freeze frame of him at the combine. He's sprinting, you have his foot turned out while he's doing this. Meanwhile, as opposed to pointed straight ahead, his heel is also in line with the center of his body instead of being in line with his hip. That's a big deal. It's causing actually a hip drop up here because he's not having his ankle in alignment or his foot in alignment. Also, if you take a look at the way his knee is pointed, his femur, his thigh bone is externally rotated while he's going through this. He also has kind of a weird torso bend at the shoulder, at the lumbar here. And if you look at his shoulders, he's got internal rotation of this right arm. His palm is actually facing away from him as he's pumping, while this arm is moving across his body and shrugging forward. And he had everything from ankle to some serious knee tears, as well as shoulder issues. Like he had a gambit of injuries over the years. Now, the joint by joint theory here, this is there's overlap in this. Like we want every joint to be both mobile and stable, but in general, it's basically saying every other joint, if we kind of work our way up the body, we want to have more mobility or more stability, and it's kind of every other. So if you think about the foot and ankle, we want that thing to be really mobile. It's a multiplanar joint. It moves in a bunch of different directions. So we want it to have great mobility. Now, we also want it to be stable. We don't want it to be hypermobile and rolling and tweaking and spraining our ankle left and right. But in general, we want this thing to have really good range of motion. Knee, we want it to be stable. We want that knee, it moves in one plane of motion. We don't want it moving inward and outward. We don't want it rotating and torquing all over the place. And like we talked about with Kevin Durant, with knees buckling in, like we don't want those things to happen. We want that knee to stay stable. Now, we also want it to have good range of motion frontward, backward. So there is some mobility focus to it. But in general, knee, we want stable. Hips, we want it to have great mobility. The hips themselves, they move in all kinds of different ranges of motion. We want to have great mobility in the hips, and most of us got some good gunk going on in those hips from the variety of things that we do to them. Core, the trunk, the lumbar, we want that thing to be stable. We want that spine to support us. We want that core to support our spine. The thoracic area, this mid-back region, the rib cage, all this, the scapulas, the shoulder girdle, this thing, we want this thing to be mobile. We want great range of motion in twisting, rotating, and extending it and rounding it, all that kind of stuff. This thoracic spine, we want some good range of motion. The shoulder girdle, we want it to be stable. Now we also want mobility. We want to be able to move through our shoulder joint like crazy, but we don't want it to be locked in this position. We want it to stay stable in a good postural position and upright position. And then neck, we want mobility to it. We want all this great range of motion. We don't want to be stiff. We don't want to have barely any range of motion. We don't want to feel super tight. So every other joint, we want more mobility or more stability, more mobility, more stability. And often we start to have certain things like if the ankles start getting tightened up, all of a sudden the knees have to start moving more. If the hips start getting tightened up, well, the knees have to move more and the lower back has to start moving a little bit more because we're stiff in the areas that we should be mobile in. If the thoracic spine is tight, you don't see our RG3 here moving his thoracic spine too much, like where you're running and really sprinting, you want to have great rotation here. So instead, we're going to have to recruit the shoulders and have them get protracted more and that kind of stuff. So you see how when we're missing range of motion in one area, the joint, like if one area is supposed to be mobile, the joint that wants to be stable above it or below it has to start being more mobile to compensate for what we're missing. So each of these joints basically impact us in a ton of different ways. That's where we're saying like it impacts everything, or knee stability impacts how we walk, run, jump, lift. Like hip mobility is literally everything. Core stability, everything. Thoracic mobility, twisting, swinging, throwing, lifting. Shoulder stability, which is reaching, raising or lifting something up, throwing, and then neck mobility impacts like every movement. So moving on to some actual practical assessments that you guys can do. Now, here is one assessment that I want to break down. We're going to talk about that first one of the list where we're talking about squats, lunges, or that split stance, the hip hinge, and walking. Well, we're going to break down the squat right here. And there's a few things that you can be looking at also that we probably want to take a look at what's going on from the side profile and all that good stuff. But we're going to keep this relatively simple, and you guys can do this and take a look at if you see any imbalances in this overhead squat here. So you can set yourself up in front of a mirror, or you can record yourself with like your phone and watch the video, which is probably even better because you can check it out frame by frame and see what's happening. And as you're doing this squat, you want to get hip width apart with your toes pointed forward, and then you're going to squat down and you're trying to check off these boxes if you're able to do it. Are you able to get just past 90 degrees, or is your butt able to drop just beyond that 90-degree mark? And if it is, and while it's doing it, are you able to keep your feet straight? Or do you got a foot turning out 5, 10, 15 degrees out to the side? Or are you actually able to keep that foot straight? Are the knees in alignment with our pinky toes? So if you draw a straight line from my kneecap here down, you will see it is in line with my pinky toe. My knee is not buckling inward toward my big toe or inside of that big toe like we saw with Kevin Durant. We're keeping the knees outside. Is that naturally happening for you? Are the hips center? Are you keeping dead symmetrical? If you drew a straight line from your head to the bottom of your torso, are you center, or are you off to one side, or are you shifting off to the other side? So that's a really big common imbalance that we see in a lot of people, is they shift 1 or 2 inches off to one side, sometimes even more so. Is the torso upright, or are you leaning super far forward and maybe having to overarch your back to try to get your chest upright? Or are you able to keep your torso? Now, you have a slight angle forward, but are you able to stay here, or are you really angled forward? Are you leaning forward like crazy? Are you overarching your back to try to compensate for this forward position of your torso? And then are you able to keep your arms still vertical, or are your arms getting pulled down in front of you? So all of these things are some quick things you can look at in the squat to see, all right, how's my body stabilized right now? Am I doing this properly, or is there something pulling on me that's preventing me from doing this pattern correctly? Well, if it isn't perfect, if you're not getting in and able to check all these boxes, here are some other little nitty-gritty assessments you can do on the range of motion side to see if maybe these are some areas that you might be lacking in. The first one is ankle mobility. We need some ankle range of motion. We need dorsiflexion, which is the range of motion when you pull your toes up toward your shins. So an assessment for this is the ankle mobility assessment. You get your foot dead straight. That's important. Most people turn their foot out to the side. Get your foot dead straight, and you're going to position it about a half a foot length from the wall. Then you're going to, like I said, keep that foot straight. You're going to keep your heel on the ground the whole time. You're not going to let that heel lift up at all. And then you're going to try to move your knee forward so that it's in alignment with the middle of your foot. You're not going to let that knee go toward your big toe. That's what's going to be tempting. You want to keep it dead straight. And can you touch that wall with your knee? Do you have this ankle range of motion? If not, that could be in part why that squat is limited. It's also this ankle mobility is going to impact you on how you're walking and running and kneeling down. Like like ankle mobility affects everything. Next guy we can look at is hip mobility. And there's a lot of different angles that we can look at for the hips, but we're talking about external rotation here because this is a really important range of motion in our proper squat pattern. So if you grab a seat and you get your ankle crossed over your other knee and you have this down leg straight in alignment with that hip width stance. I'm not letting this leg, I'm not cheating by letting my down leg kind of cross my body and going more across here. I want this to be dead vertical. And with this, am I able to get my knee in alignment with my hip? Or is it like way up into my ribs or way up into my chest? Do I have a really steep angle and I'm not really able to open up that hip? And also, is it even? This is one of those assessments where you will often find one side of the body is much more open than the other side of the body. You'll notice like one leg is coming down here and the other leg is up here when you compare it side to side. So again, you can watch yourself in the mirror or you can record yourself and kind of notate the difference between each side. And that can be indicative of, that's why my hips are getting pulled off to the side. I have this imbalance right there. Shoulder mobility. This is another important one. So the shoulder mobility here, this is a test. You can tuck your thumbs inside your fists and you're going to go high-low behind your back. And the things that you're trying to see here are, one is the bottom arm. And so you probably want to record yourself for this, or you can have a partner watch you and tell you if you're doing this. Is the bottom arm able to clear 90 degrees? So is it angled? Is the forearm angled either down toward the small of the back, or is it dead straight across? Or are we able to pass 90 degrees and have it angled upwards towards the opposite shoulder? Then the top arm, are you able to get this arm totally vertical? Is it upright here, or is it angled out to the side, or is it jutting forward type thing? So that's important for the top arm. And then we also want to make sure that we're keeping the feet straight together. And when we get into that position, we're just trying to see where we get to naturally, not like wiggling and trying to worm our arms a little bit closer. And we want to do this on both sides. Again, are we balanced? Or do we have one side is way more open than the other? Okay, that can be indicative of why we're having these one-sided injuries or imbalances pulling us off and making us more inefficient as an athlete. Now, a case study or a testimonial from somebody who went through our program and was able to use her assessments and understanding how her body was moving and train it how to move correctly to deal with some stuff that she was dealing with was Kim Johnson. She's a caretaker that's based out of North Carolina, and she was dealing with plantar fasciitis, degenerative disc disease in her lumbar and her cervical spine, her lower back and neck, and recurring knee, hip, and rib pain. So she was really just dealing with kind of like full body. Everything was just killing her on a regular basis. And it was impacting her ability to work and let alone exercise, and the mental emotional toll on not being able to live the active life that she wanted was crazy. And so for her, when we first assessed, we took a look at her squat, we took a look at her lunge, we took a look at her hurdle step and a number of different assessments, and all of them were poor. She couldn't do very good range of motion. She was asymmetrical. She had a lot of imbalances. So we took a look at her ankle mobility. That was really poor. Her hip mobility in a number of different ways was poor. Her external rotation, like we just showed in that cross-legged position, as well as her hip extension was really bad as well. And then her core stability was really poor. She couldn't activate her core. Her balance was really bad. And there was a variety of reasons for that. So after just 10 weeks, she basically had near perfect ranges of motion and stability in these patterns. And her feet and knees and spine felt amazing. And she was able to return to work fully at full capacity and consistently exercise. Like, she was getting to the gym for the first time in over a year and a half, multiple times a week, and feeling amazing while doing so. And this all just came from retraining how her body did these natural patterns on a daily basis. So my question, and something for you guys to ask yourself, is, have you ever had all of your functional movements and postural positions analyzed? And then if you did, like if someone did say like, okay, let's see how you squat, how you lunge, how you hip hinge, how you're walking, how you're running, all that kind of stuff, were you then shown how your body was doing, like how your imbalances were impacting how your body was moving, and then most importantly, how the heck to fix it? How did you solve it? How do you, what things do you need to do to reteach it how to actually move correctly? Now, if the answers are no to these things, that's okay. That, to me, that's actually a good thing. That means that there's an avenue that you haven't explored that's probably making a really big impact in your health. And you can use the assessments that I covered as some self-assessments to try to take a look at how your body is moving and seeing if you do in fact have some imbalances. And if so, like we're about to get into how to explore and resolve those areas. Or if you want specific help, specific guidance, you want some professionals to take a look at how you're moving and give you specific feedback, that's why we have these free calls as a resource. All right, step 2. Secret number 2 is mobilize your body. Standard physical therapy and chiropractic treatments and acupuncture are overrated. You can do it yourself. Now, I say that to be dramatic, but like, I actually really respect physical therapy. I have physical therapists on my program. That would be kind of contraindicative if I didn't. I love chiropractic treatments. I've had some great success from chiropractors, and acupuncture is an amazing treatment option. Massage therapy is incredible. These things are amazing tools, but we don't have to rely on them. Not like every time I get tweaked, I got to run to the chiropractor. Or every time I get a pain or a tweak or an injury, I have to go to my physical therapist. No, we can do it ourselves. There's a lot of stuff that we are in control of ourselves. Now, the American PT Association reported, and this I want to say was like 5 or 6 years ago, so I know that this has gone up since, but the last study that I saw, that chronic pain has surpassed costs in cancer, heart disease, and diabetes. So what that means is the increased average cost for individuals in pain versus individuals that are in no pain on an annual basis is an increase of $4,500 to $9,000 per year. Per year. That's insanity. So that's, if someone is dealing with consistent recurring pains and injuries, they are paying $4,500 to $9,000 more per year in comparison to somebody who isn't. And that's nuts. And this is impacting millions upon millions of people. And I've seen some other studies, not from the American PT Association, that are approximating upwards of like $14,000 to $15,000. And if you think about it, like an MRI or recurring treatments on monthly and weekly basis, the co-pays that we got to pay, for these things, like medications and that kind of stuff, the costs go up real fast. Well, ungunking knotted up tissue, and I say knotted up, like I like, not all these tissues are literally knots. Some of them are just like stuck together like cement, but we're saying that's gunk in the body. My favorite quote on this is from Katie Bowman. Trying to stretch a muscle with knotted up, aka gunked up fascia, is like trying to stretch a cotton shirt with swabs of dried paint on it. So what she means by this is all your soft tissues have these connective tissues called fascia that runs through this body and attaches in these gigantic, huge lines from head to toe. And fascia is the second densest substance in your body next to bone. And when fascia gets poorly hydrated or gets, you've also heard fascia is also used as another term for scar tissue. So if you guys have had injuries and you had scar tissue around an area, that's gunked up fascia that's like a rat's nest around an old injury. These areas of sticky, dense tissue, if we try to stretch, if that's how we're trying to mobilize the body is by stretching, well, that's like taking a cotton shirt that has nothing on it. This would be, and we pull on it. That's like having just fresh tissue that we're stretching. This is good. We're getting some great mobility to this thing. We're elongating the entire tissue. But if we have gunked up fascia, that's like taking paint, putting some swabs on that shirt, letting it dry, and then trying to stretch that cotton shirt. Well, obviously, the painted areas are going to prevent that fabric from opening up. So we can stretch all we want, but if we don't do the manual work to actually bust up and break up those paint swabs, then the tissue doesn't stretch and release and mobilize in the areas that actually matter. So it doesn't actually help us. Great quote from Katie Bowman. So what can we do to increase our ranges of motion ourselves? Well, first and foremost, we can foam roll and trigger point, or if we have like access to those massage guns, those things can be phenomenal. They're an alternative tool to this, or like a Theracane or that kind of stuff. But basically, things that allow us to find those hurt so good, gunked up, knotted up tissues, and apply pressure and breath work and movement. Like I'm a big fan. If you're going to foam roll and trigger point, you don't just get on the area and just pray the pain goes away. Like you can actually do breath work to relax the nervous system. You can do movements and contractions and relaxations and get blood flow to the area and be proactive, and so that you can bust up and break up and release that paint on, that gunked up, painted up area of where the tissue is being restricted. And so those tools can help us do our own manual work that a physical therapist would do, or a chiropractor who does soft tissue work, or a massage therapist who gives us those hurt so good massages. We can do this ourselves. Also, we can stretch. Stretching is great, but we want to first bust up that gunk so that our tissue actually has the ability to stretch fully. But it's still a great tool. We just got to do it in conjunction with the manual work. Also, there's some stuff called voodoo band compression. Voodoo band compression is amazing. It's not something that I'm actually going to cover on our topic today, but it involves a little strip of band like this, and you can do heavy compression around an area, around a tissue that you want to mobilize around the legs or the arms. And then you can go through ranges of motion with that compression, and it causes you to basically like rip through the gunk and open up the body. And it works so fast, it's been coined voodoo, because it's kind of freaky how quick it helps us reduce inflammation, mobilize the area, and get new nutrients flushing to the area right when you're done. So it feels, the areas that you're manipulating feel better almost instantaneously. It's pretty cool. Also is miraculous when it comes to helping with soreness, like really brutal soreness after a good workout or a good run. It's great for the legs and the arms. And then movement, full range of motion movement, and that's going to be coming up. We're going to talk about that in the last secret. An example, a testimonial, and again, I'm not going to read this whole thing. If you guys want to read the whole thing, go for it. But was Sean Finnerty, and he was in his 40s. He's a husband, a father, a teacher, former MMA athlete, recreational hockey player. And his quote was, "Up until a few months ago, I was largely incapable of moving without pain, specifically in his hip, lower back, and neck regions." And he was working through like regular weekly chiropractic treatments to manage just what he felt like was the symptoms. Like, you get a treatment and feel better for a couple of days, then you get pulled out of alignment and he had to go right back. And then we started teaching him how to take a holistic approach, and starting off with mobility, working through this gunk, manipulating his soft tissue, allowing him to get his range of motion back. And that's where he was able to basically rechange how his whole life was functioning, and how he was able to stabilize around work and his family and his exercise. And what was really cool was that he was able to do it during a really crazy time in his life. There was this whole COVID pandemic thing, and he was stuck at home with his kids and young kids, doing virtual school, and his wife, and trying to be a teacher and educator himself, and adjusting from being in class to online. And there was all this nut stuff going on, and he was trying to prioritize his health, and he was able to do it all. It was really cool to work with Sean. So another, to me, inspiring story. And I mean, we're choosing a good dozen to go through this presentation, but we could literally pick from hundreds on this. But Sean was awesome. Now, 50% of our client success comes from proper mobility plan. So it's prioritizing the specific knotted up tissues, gunked up tissues, and carefully chosen stretches to improve the ranges of motion that matter to you. A lot of times we try to just stretch everything. We're like, all right, I'm going to stretch my hips in every which angle. Well, if you stretch in an area that you don't need to stretch, but then you don't, and then you try to stretch in the area that you do, but they're kind of opposing, you're kind of working against yourself, right? Like if I stretch my hamstrings and stretch my quads, but I don't, but relatively speaking, I didn't change the tension. Like I want my quads to be more open, or I want my hamstrings to be more open, but I've balanced them both out, or I've foam rolled them both just as evenly, then I didn't really make a difference in how my body moved. I spent everything evenly. So you want to prioritize the areas that are actually tight on you, that actually need the work. And if we don't release the knotted up tissue ourselves, like the consequences, we know this, like the cost goes through the roof. If we start relying on regular treatments on a weekly and monthly basis, they add up real fast. We already saw that statistic from the American PT Association. We also, if we don't get those treatments or we don't do them consistently enough, we stay in pain. We those periodic treatments, the stretching and foam rolling that once in a blue moon isn't enough. We got to do this consistently. And then obviously our health, fitness, and our athleticism, our general quality of life with the activities that we love to do, that declines. We don't get to enjoy the things that we want as much. So what are the common areas that most people need to release? And now this is relative to each person, and some people need more work on like the right foot versus the left foot. Some people need more on the quad versus the adductor, or vice versa. Like it depends on each person. And if you guys want specific information on your particular body, feel free to schedule that call. We'd be happy to help you. But like the general stuff that you can explore, and you can feel into this, like you can start rolling out these areas and be like, all right, what feels the most intense? And no, okay, that right side is the worst of the two. Okay, work on that right side more. Are the bottoms of your feet and your calves. That's what this guy is doing right here. The bottoms of your feet and calves, really important guys to get into. Also your quads and your adductors. That's the front of your thighs and your inner thighs. Those are really common areas that have some gnarly gunk in it. The hip flexors, the front of your hips. Man, is that a huge deal, because many of us have some sitting that we do throughout the day. Maybe we started off as kids and we were sitting in class and we're studying and sitting and doing homework and sitting, and then we became adults and we started driving, or maybe sitting in front of our computers, or maybe taking a load off at the end of the day with our family and sitting on the couch. All those hours sitting, we're tightening up our hip flexors. And then we often get up and we want to do some activities. We want to go have some fun. We want to play some sports. We want to hike. Well, all those running and knee driving activities engage our hip flexors. Bike riding, we're shortening up the hip flexors and pumping our knees forward. So we tighten up these hip flexors for a variety of reasons. Another area that needs some good work is the glutes and the butt and the lower back erectors. So many of us get overextended into the lower back, and our lower back, the muscles that run along those guys get really tight along with the glutes themselves. The thoracic spine and the upper traps, the up here around the shoulder girdle, the scapulas in between those guys, along the sides and then above, and the upper traps, all these guys around those shoulder blades, this area gets really stiff on us, and we tend to go in this direction, or we tend to lose our rotational range of motion, yada, yada, yada. And then the chest and the front of the shoulders, that also contributes to this forward position that many of us have get impacted in. That stems from like using our mouse or typing or driving, eating, all that kind of stuff that rolls us forward. But it also stems from, if our glutes and core aren't stabilizing well, our shoulders will tend to go that direction, and all the above. So those are the common areas that we need to release. We don't need to do them all every day, but we do need to get them on a pretty much weekly basis, depending, like I said, some individuals might need more or less of one of these. Another example of this was Kyle Q, based out of New York, loves to exercise in all ways. And before health by ratio, he was dealing with chronic knee, ankle, hip, and lower back tightness and sorenesses. Like it was impacting him a lot. He just wasn't able to work out very frequently, and he wasn't moving very well throughout his job. And when we assessed him, he had poor ankle mobility, poor hip mobility, and poor thoracic mobility as well. There's Stella again, making her appearance. And then after health by ratio, actually, this wasn't even when he was finished. It was just 10 weeks into his program. He was still working with us. He had perfect range of motion in all of these guys. And all of his injuries and pains were healed, gone, like just completely gone. And he was able to improve his balance and power, and he was allowed to get back into running, which he hadn't done for years. It was really fun to see him start running again and analyze his running gait and all that. And he did it while having their like newborn. I think that like, it was he had his wife and him had his first child like I think 2 or 3 weeks into his program. So he was able to juggle all this in a manageable way and still get to his results. It was really incredible. So how many areas do you consistently stretch each week? Some of you might be like, I stretch like crazy. Well, how many of those areas do you also release through manual manipulation? Are you combining deep tissue work? Are you ungunking those paint swabbed areas and stretching those areas? And again, if the answer to either or both of these questions is no, don't feel bad about it. That's actually should excite you a little bit. That should be like, cool, I have an area, a reason why my body probably isn't where it needs to be right now, where I want it to be. So I got something that I can explore that's going to help me move in the right direction. That's a good thing. Now, secret number 3. This is the most important portion of this because all of what we've talked about so far is building up to this step. This is the main key. We need to recondition the way our body moves. We need to reteach our body, AKA we need to retrain the central nervous system that dictates everything that we do, how to move with balance and stability with the new full ranges of motion that we've cultivated. We got to stabilize this range of motion. It's the most important key to our physical health. Your central nervous system controls everything. Every movement, position, and breath you take is coming from that central nervous system. And here's the thing, passive therapies do not address the central nervous system, meaning standard physical therapy, especially a lot of the manual work that we do, basically most, if not, I shouldn't say all, most chiropractic treatments, because they're manually adjusting our skeletal system back into place, acupuncture, massage therapy, and even the stretching and the MFR is myofascial release. That's the manual manipulation stuff we were talking about, mobility in the last step. All of those things do not teach the body how to move correctly or differently. They just improve ranges of motion, reduce tensions, maybe they strengthen up certain specific areas of the body, but they're not teaching this whole body as a unit to move any better, to stabilize better in full ranges of motion. They're just working on things that help us feel a little bit better in the moment, reduce some tension, reduce some soreness. But then we get up out of that treatment and we go and we sit in the car the same way that we did when we came in. And then we go and get out and we go for a walk with the same walking gait that we had before. And then we go and squat down to pick up our kids with the same form that we did before. And we pull our body right back out of alignment. We re-irritate this thing. So unless we retrain the central nervous system, it's just an endless cycle that we keep going through. And then surgery, supplementations, medications, braces. My favorite is the whole thing of new shoes. Runners out there, if I had a nickel for every time I heard, I think I might need to get new shoes, that's why my knee is hurting, I would be a billionaire. Your shoes are not the issue. Now, maybe if your shoes are super worn out to no end and we can't even address how you can't improve the way you run because your shoe is slanted to one side, then yeah, okay, you need new shoes. But your shoes aren't the problem. It's what you're doing in the shoes that's wearing them out the way that they are. Yeah, like getting new shoes isn't solving your running gait. Your running gait is what's beating up your shoes incorrectly. So anyway, those things don't address the central nervous system. Now, imbalanced movement is the #1 reason injuries occur and linger. That's like the number one red flag as a PT, as a functional movement coach, as a strength, as a corrective exercise specialist. Like, we are looking for asymmetries. Is one side of the body moving significantly differently than the other side of the body? If so, doesn't matter where it is, that's probably why that person is dealing with, like, if they have asymmetries in the right and left foot, that's probably why they're dealing with some back pain. That's a really good, and that's also probably lingering up into asymmetries in the hips. And that's all right. Like, it trickles up and down this whole kinetic chain. Like we said, it's a one big giant web. Fascia runs from head to toe, attaches all over the place. So the imbalanced movement from one side to the other is why injuries occur. And that's my favorite still photo of RG3 running his 40. Now, a testimonial to this was Max A in Las Vegas, over 50, and he is a mountain biker, American Ninja Warrior competitor. You guys ever watch American Ninja Warrior? Is one of my favorite shows for a long time. A runner and really just all-around athlete. He pushes his body to the limit still to this day. And he came to us after working with like a huge variety of physical therapists, and also worked with a functional movement coach through a different program for 9 months. It was actually through the Egoscue method. And that's not to poo-poo the Egoscue method. I actually really respect what they've done. I've studied under them. I've gotten a lot of great resources from them, but they have kind of a specific set of protocols that are applicable to getting someone to a certain level, where Max was looking for, and what he was needing to do was he was really pushing his body to a whole new limit. And while he was training for American Ninja Warrior, he was having pretty significant and recurring injuries to his hip and his shoulder, his knee, his elbow, with elbow tendonitis, and he just didn't feel like, with all the time and energy and money that he was spending on his body, he wasn't getting to where he needed to be. And so we started working with him, and he was able to retrain how his body moved, not just in his daily habits, but also in like fast twitch, kind of explosive things that was applicable to his goals. Obviously, our clients that just want to be able to roll around in the yard with the grandkids, like, we don't need to teach them how to jump and explode and sprint correctly, but for him, he needed to. And so we were able to rebuild how his body moved from head to toe in his athleticism, and able to actually stabilize himself correctly. And that was what allowed him to repair really, really fast, and stop his recurring injuries and progress in his health and athletic goals. So how do we do this? Well, my biggest thing with this is proprioceptive exercise. FTW is for the win. Proprioceptive exercise is, to me, the best way you can retrain the central nervous system. And basically, proprioception is your body's natural ability to respond and restabilize itself to something. So it'd kind of be like if I was standing next to you and I pushed you, and you got that push, and you naturally kind of just balanced, and you didn't fall over. You were like, you just balanced and stabilized yourself. That's a proprioceptive response. I pushed you, and your core and your glutes and your legs and feet all kind of responded naturally and restabilized you. Well, you can use proprioceptive exercise. In this image right here, you see me, it's not that, I'm kind of cut off right here, but I have a band pulling my left knee forward right here, because I'm trying to work on my left side hip to activate in hip extension more. I have to wake up my glute, basically. I have a band wrapped around my knee attached to the other knee. So I'm working on opening up my hips laterally. That's working on the outside muscle groups here, like my glute medius and TFL and all that good stuff. And then I have this band opening up my shoulders overhead, and that's training my shoulder girdle to open. So I'm getting pulled in all these different directions, because as long as I try to squat in alignment, and fight all these different tensions, my body is going to learn how to pull itself back into position by engaging these areas. So I don't have to engage my left butt. I don't have to think about engaging this side of my body more. I don't have to think about it. I'm just responding to the bands, and that's teaching me how to move. Now, this is a relatively complicated exercise. We're not starting everybody off with this kind of a movement, but it's an example of stuff that we can do with bands pulling on us one direction or another. That's what you see hanging up behind me here. You got bands pulling on you on one direction or another in a certain specific way, and your body responds by you just thinking, fight the band. You wake up your glutes, you wake up your core, you teach this body how to stabilize and balance correctly. So we want to kind of break this thing down. So it's good for us to recondition each joint's mobility and alignment and do some kind of nitty gritty strength and range of motion work. So it's not bad to work on the feet and the ankles and the knees and the hips and the core and the thoracic spine and the shoulder girdle and the neck and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's not bad to do that. Like, that's what a lot of us need to do when we first have a traumatic injury and we got to go to physical therapy. If we just tore our ACL and we had a massive surgery to repair it, then yeah, we got to do some work specifically on that knee. But once we've done that, once we've finished it, we then need to functionally train everything to move in harmony in the ways we actually use our body, whether that's our daily life or whether that's the way we exercise, whether it's the activities we do, all that kind of stuff. Another great example of this was Cole Garvey. When we were working together, he was a high school senior and lacrosse player who is getting into his final season before playing. He had actually already committed to a school back east to play lacrosse. And before he was working with us, he was dealing with basically recurring chronic ankle sprains every season and foot injuries that would coincide with that, as well as chronic lower back soreness and tightness. And especially when he was training for college, when he was trying to work out and work on speed and agility, like, these things were impacting his training like crazy. And we did our assessments, and through his big patterns, like his squatting, his lunging, his hip hinging, his ankle range of motion, how he was running, all the above was unstable, poor. And so for him, he responded really quickly. Within 8 weeks, he was able to stabilize in all of our assessments with great ranges of motion throughout his ankles and his hips. And he was able to feel balanced and fluid and really powerful, because not only is he not feeling recurring pains and injuries, but now his body is moving symmetrically the way that it's supposed to. So his glutes and his core are driving him in the direction he's trying to go. He's not having one knee go one way and one hip go the other way. And so he's using his body more efficiently. It's causing him to be much more powerful. And he's been able to maintain his body's health throughout that. He was able to do that throughout his varsity season. And then while preparing for college lacrosse, he was able to actually stay healthy for the months leading up to it, which is freaking amazing. So my question for you is, first, do you have a proper warm-up to activate the body every day, like appropriate to the things that you're going to do? Do you have a 5, 10, 15-minute warm-up that's actually working on specific activations to wake up those certain areas that need more love or need to be retrained? Or you just kind of go through some cardio for a little bit, or maybe you just go through some general stretches, or maybe you don't do anything. Maybe you're not doing anything, or maybe you just strung together some stuff you saw on YouTube for, like, this is what you do before you run. No, or is it specific to you? And like I said, is that, when I say specific to you, is that routine based off your body's deviations? And then beyond this, do you have a specific workout that is based around your body's deviations, or running gait cues or walking cues to teach your body how to walk or run correctly, specific to your body's deviations? And again, if your answers to these questions are no, that's not a bad thing. That's actually a great thing. That's like, okay, there's a reason why this body isn't feeling and recovering the way that I want. I have some stuff that I can explore here. And again, we can get real specific with this. If you want some help, feel free to schedule that call, and we'll help you out. So a recap of these 3 secrets that we talked about today. We want to first analyze our functional posture and movement patterns to see how the body is moving from head to toe. We want to mobilize, stretch, ungunk with some manual manipulation, those gunky, tight tissues in the body to restore range of motion back. And we want to retrain our central nervous system then to use those ranges of motion to be functionally sound, to stabilize ourselves so that we are moving in those full ranges of stable motion correctly. When you follow this simple framework, you will fully rehab from pains and injuries. You will also prevent, like, almost all future injuries. You're also going to maximize your balance, strength, and power. You're going to be a better moving, more efficient machine. You're going to run faster. You're going to run more efficiently. You're going to jump higher. You're going to jump more efficiently. You're going to feel a heck of a lot stronger and quicker and all that good stuff. And this is going to allow us to live the active and fit life that you love and that we all desire, whether then that's relative to each person, whatever you like to do, whether that's surf, whether that's play tennis, whether that's paddleboard, whether that's ride a bike or train for a sport and all the above, or train for events like marathons. And that's just like Orly and Noel and Peter and Anna and Kim and Sean and Max, Cole, Kyle, and myself. Like I'm in this group and literally thousands of other clients just like you. So at this point, you've heard me talk about it, but to kind of drive it home, let us help you understand what your body needs. We'd love to help. We're offering you a free mobility consultation call. That's the informational call where we get to chat with you and hear from you on what you've been dealing with and what you are working through on a regular basis and your goals on where you want to go. And then we're going to offer another free bonus, which is that video conference call where we're going to connect. And I personally am going to take you through a number of assessments and see how and why this body is doing what it's doing. And then more importantly, how to fix it. Like, so I want to teach you guys what it's doing and why it's doing it. And then what are the specific things that you can do to get this thing back into full range, stable motion. And how we're going to help is we're going to review that injury and pain history. We're going to review your health, fitness, and or athletic goals. We're going to test those bodies through a number of different assessments. And then we're going to give you those specific techniques that you can do. Who's this call for? It is for the motivated and the coachable. So it's the people that are pumped about functional health and are able to get some feedback and implement it. It's for active individuals wanting to fully recover and prevent injuries. It's from anyone obsessed with gaining control over their health for life. So you want to be able to maintain this mechanism as opposed to always having to rely on somebody else. And active individuals and athletes wanting to maximize their fitness. They want to get themselves more explosive, want to learn how to exercise properly that's appropriate to their sport or activity or how their body moves, all the above. And one little side note is this call is not for the debilitated. So if you can't move, and if you're in a place like you just tore your ACL and you're waiting on surgery, this call isn't for you just yet. Like, you're more than welcome to you can send us an email and say, hey, I'm interested in this, but I have a surgery scheduled, blah, blah, blah. Like, we can connect with you afterwards if you but you need to get yourself through that basic standard physical therapy. You need to get that knee to a point where you can stand on it again and you can walk around, and then we can help with this. So it's not for the debilitated, and it's also not for the victims. So if you resonate with my body hurts and I'm always hurt and this is just how I always am and that is what it is, then don't bother with this call. I'm not going to be able to convince you otherwise, and my team isn't going to be able to convince you otherwise. So if you are motivated and coachable, heck yeah. If you resonate more on the victim stage, if you want that victim to win more than you want the hero to win, then this call isn't for you. So now you have a choice. Option one, you can get some help from a proven system for free, or you can stay in the same injury and pain cycle. And that's fine. That's totally fine too. You're absolutely allowed to do that. But if you are interested in this and you're like, why the heck is Madison and the Health by Ratio team offering this? Why do we do this? Because it sounds like they're giving away a lot of stuff and they're not asking for much in return. Well, the first thing is that we've been really fortunate in our success. Like my team and I, as professionals, we've been really fortunate in our success throughout our careers. And so truly all of us love giving back. It's something that we're really passionate about. And because it's incredibly hard to find functional rehab and corrective exercise programs that really address the entire body from head to toe, and take a holistic approach to it, that's another reason why I'm really passionate about giving back, because it's not a resource that many people have access to locally and or even know where to look. And then if it happens to be this way, if we end up being a good fit where I think our program would be appropriate for you, and more importantly, you're interested in what we do and working with my team and I, then awesome. Be happy to help and happy to try it out and see if we work well together. And if not, that's totally fine too. There is no pressure. I don't intend this to be a sales call, and I want this to be a service call that helps you as much as humanly possible. I'm happy to help. And why do I believe that? Why am I willing to do all that? Is because in general, I believe the more we unconditionally help people, the more we'll succeed. That's basically the like golden rule, like a good karma, whatever you want to call it. I believe the more people that we help, the more that we're going to succeed, whether that's directly with people that actually say, you know what, this all makes a ton of sense and I love this and I'd like to work with you guys on your holistic approach, or whether it's indirectly, maybe that person talks to a friend about us and says, yeah, I got this great assessment and they really helped me out and I didn't feel like they were selling me on anything and they gave me some great resources on what I could do on my own. Check this out. And or maybe you guys leave us a review or post on our social media or something like that, whatever. I believe that it's going to help us in the long run. So that's something that I'm passionate about and how we operate our business. What others have said about this call. I'm not going to read all these, but these are basically a bunch of people that, or a handful of people, I should say. We've now hundreds, probably over 1,000 now. I've done a ton of these calls, and I still don't think to this day we've had somebody who's walked away from that call with a bad review. I think pretty much everybody who's connected with us, like literally batting 1,000, I think everyone has walked away and said, that was really great. Thank you so much for that information. It was very, very valuable. But these were just a handful of posts people left for us and tagged us in on their results. So it's simple. The link that's off to the side, that little like book your call link thing, that button, you click on it, it's going to take you to our schedule page. You pick your time zone. Pick the date that you want to schedule your call. If for whatever reason you need to schedule a call further out in advance, I would still just like schedule a random call. And then when you book the call, it'll give you a reschedule link and it'll also send you an email directly. You can respond to it and say, hey, I'm looking for a call and at this date, and we can look at a future time. My assistant or I can help you with it or whatever. It's not a big deal. But we tend to keep them within a week. We don't want too many people booking several weeks, several months out, because then most of the time they don't show up. So, but if you're a special circumstance and you're for traveling or something like that, and you need it further out, just let us know. And then the next page that you'll be taken to is a mobility questionnaire. And it's relatively quick, but it gives us some general information on what we're going to be chatting with you about. Don't feel like you need to write essays on this. Like we're going to get all this information on our call, but feel free to give us some good key points on what your goals are and what your body has been through. That's it. So to book your call, like you can click on that button, or you can go to this URL itself, that go.oncehub.com/HBR call will take you to that same calendar booking page. And now let's jump into some quick Q&As. And like, again, this stuff, guys, is more, I'm not going to get super specific. So like one of the questions that I get all the time, and I've probably gotten already a dozen from just this presentation today. I haven't reviewed my inbox because I've been chatting with you guys this whole time, but I'm sure I'm getting them. Is what's your favorite exercise for sciatic nerve? Or what's your favorite, your favorite stretch for a thoracic outlet? Or what's your favorite technique for like whatever, insert whatever. It's all dependent on each person. And I can't really answer that question because it depends on your body. Like the sciatic nerve can get irritated from what's happening in the ankles. It could also happen from what's happening in the right hip or the left hip or both. It can get a bit irritated from what's going on in your core and in your shoulder girdle and your neck. Like it's all connected. So it's dependent on your individual body to determine why that sciatic nerve or why that thoracic outlet's occurring or why that knee is getting tweaked. So I'm happy to answer that, but it's going to be based off of how your body's moving. And so that's why we offer these resources, and I'll be happy to answer that question, but I need to actually see how your body is moving. So I can't necessarily answer that. It's different. Like someone has an ACL tear, it's different from person A to person B. So that's one really common question I get. Then another couple of questions. Can a program like this help with multiple injuries? Absolutely. 100% yes. Like I think you guys already saw a number of testimonials where people were dealing with a number of different things, because like I think that this kind of a program, when we're taking a holistic approach of how the body moves, and for us, like we're also looking at how someone's nutrition is and how their mindset and mental emotional states are. All of those things impact the whole body from head to toe. So when we address all of it, we end up getting this whole body into full range of stable motion that heals and repairs and is able to deal with multiple injuries incredibly well. Another common question that we get is, how much does our program cost? Because people will hear this and be like, this sounds really interesting, but how much is it with you guys? So it really depends on each person. We customize our programs to each person. We have multiple different versions of our program depending on how much someone needs help with. We work with everything from other doctors and orthopods and chiropractors to just general population people who are, like I said, just wanting to get an understanding of their body and how to stay in control of it, and then athletes and everywhere in between. So we tailor it to what this person needs and how much support they need. But I would say in general, our programs range from like a couple $100s a month, like $50, $60 a week kind of thing, if you average it out. And then upwards of a few $100s. And I think our highest version of our program, which very, very, very few people we recommend for, it's for really extreme cases, and so like less than 1%. I think it ranges to like $1,000 a month, but that's because they're seeing us several times a week and doing tons of, like, there's a lot of crazy stuff involved with that. But I would say for most of our clients, it's a couple $100s a month to a few $100s a month, and we normally work with somebody for 2 to 4 months. That's kind of the average that we're working with somebody on. And we have a number of payment plans that we incorporate, and we get, like, ultimately our goal in my team, if you haven't picked up on this already, we want to help people get to their health and fitness goals. We want to help people truly reach their goals and gain this a holistic approach to do so. And that's what we're passionate about. The financial side of it is not our concern. Our priority is helping people. So if someone is really committed to getting to their goals and they want to jump into our program, but for whatever reason, the way we have our payment structured, or right now, even if it's not doable for them to make payments, we get creative and we find a way to work with that person no matter what. We want to make sure that we help all. So that answers that question. And then another one: how does the actual health by ratio program work online? Well, there's a ton of stuff that we do, and it combines everything from, we have a very extensive members only website that we give access to everybody for life. It's gigantic. It's over, I think, 80 video modules of every stretch, not released, corrective exercise, fitness and activity exercise, walking, running gait analysis. They're just nutrition and mindset work. There's a ton of stuff on there. And so we customize the program for that client, and then we any technique that they're supposed to do, it's broken down each day. Everything they need to do is just a few things a day. They have a direct link, jumps them right to the video that shows them how to implement that technique. But then depending on the version of our program that person is working through, they also have access to my team basically 24/7, and myself. We create a group chat with you where it's like you, me, your physical therapist, your orthopedic movement specialist, and we're your functional health coach, and the handful of us are in contact with you basically multiple times a week, and that's through text messages, voice messages, exchanging videos back and forth. We're your resource, and we want all the good and bad feedback so that we can adjust and adapt your program as you're going through it. Every week to 2 weeks, we make tweaks to your program based off of what your body needs. And then outside of that, we again, depending on the version of the program that someone's in, we do one-on-one calls. You connect with myself and my team, and we do coaching calls with you. We teach you how to exercise. We teach you how to walk. We teach you how to run. We teach you how to do your program and answer your questions and all that kind of stuff just in private calls with you. We do group calls for access to everybody in the program, where you can jump on to small group calls and get support on a daily basis. There's a lot of different things that we incorporate with Health by Ratio. But all this, I'm just answering because we often get these questions, and I'm happy to inform you guys, but this isn't appropriate for these calls that we offer. Our calls are designed to help you understand your body and correct your body. And not about promoting Health by Ratio. If it's something that you're interested in and I think it's appropriate, great. But otherwise, I just want to help you as much as we can. And what's the difference between you and physical therapy? Well, I would say there's not tons different, other than because I use licensed physical therapists in our program. They work for me, and we collaborate together on creating these really rehabilitative programs. But I would say that we're much more holistic in that we're also taking a look at nutrition and mindset, and we take it a step beyond just the rehabilitation side. We also are taking them into the actual fitness and activity side. So we're building workout plans for someone. We're teaching, we're building running programs and doing like recurring running gait analysis on them or walking gait analysis on them. And we take this kind of like to the end point. We're not just like working with you for 4 weeks for 8 visits and then parting ways. Instead, like we're working with you for as long as it takes to get this body not just rehabilitated, but then also progress it on the fitness side and the athletic side, depending on whatever is appropriate for that client's goal, to take them to living the kind of life that they want. So guys, if you haven't already, feel free to book your call. We'd love to help you. Or if you have any feedback on this presentation, type it in that chat. It goes to me personally. Yeah, outside of that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I wish you the absolute best on your goals, and thanks for tuning in. Talk to you soon.